So, in the developer preview for World of Warcraft's 9.2 patch, something that came up twice was this idea that Shadowlands is the ending chapter in a Warcraft saga. In an interview with Game Braves, Steve Denuser said, begin quote, "They are meant to be a conclusion to a long series of stories we've seen weaving their way through multiple expansions." End quote. Steve said this when speaking of the events taking place in, well, 9.2. What other big MMO is being advertised as an ending chapter to a saga? Oh, that's right, Final Fantasy XIV. Endwalker is the closing chapter to the Zodiark and Hydaelyn saga. Now, I can't be sure, but it does seem likely that Blizzard saw all the buzz surrounding Final Fantasy XIV and how their new expansion was going to be the end of this huge saga years in the making, and then they thought, hey, that's Shadowlands too. From what I understand, World of Warcraft is trying to improve their narrative. I think that is noble and something to applaud. The narrative has been weak for a while now, which is a shame since World of Warcraft is full of interesting lore that they could definitely explore. I know that there are books and comics and other external media you can get for more story and context, but that's not in the game. The game is what we are looking at, and it's kind of ridiculous to expect the players to go out and spend a bunch of money to get the story to understand what's going on in the game. Basically, that is to say, World of Warcraft did not earn calling Shadowlands a conclusion to a saga. There is no merit to such a bombastic statement, and it comes off pretty hollow. When they said this was the conclusion of a saga, I could feel my eyes rolling into the back of my head. World of Warcraft didn't take nearly enough time to set up anything in their narrative to support the gravitas of such a statement. Put another way, if the World of Warcraft developers didn't tell us this was the end to some epic saga that they have been setting up, would we know it? I would have just guessed it's the end of another expansion, to be honest. In Final Fantasy XIV, you could tell Endwalker was the end by the tone of what was happening, and how the story was unfolding up to this point. It is obvious that Endwalker is going to be the big conclusion to a storyline set up nearly a decade ago. The comparison I would make here is that Final Fantasy XIV is like Marvel. When Marvel decided to make their epic saga, they did so by making movies for well over a decade to flesh out characters and slowly set up the big bad. The reason Endgame worked so well is because of all the effort they put in setting up the stage. Final Fantasy XIV has been setting up its stage for over a decade as well. We knew about Hydaelyn since day one, and Zodiark is hinted at very early on in A Realm Reborn. In fact, it's pretty crazy if you watch or replay content from A Realm Reborn, because Zodiark is hinted at very early on. And of course, as the story continued, we were drip-fed more and more information about the Ascians and their relationship with Zodiark. The reason that so many of us are excited for Endwalker is because the team behind the narrative were smart, and they took their time to build up the story, characters, motivations, and it all built to this final chapter in the Hydaelyn Zodiark saga. So, if Final Fantasy XIV is like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then World of Warcraft is like the DC Cinematic Universe. DC saw how popular Marvel was and how awesome the movies that had all the heroes come together were, and wanted to rush into that without doing the same amount of setup. World of Warcraft rushes through its content. This has been the case for a while. They seem to want to push players right into the next big moment, and because of that, they don't really earn those moments. The big example here is the burning of Teldrassil, which could have very easily been an expansion worth of content, or, at the very least, it could have been the focus of an entire patch, but what we got was something quick and sort of glossed over. I still remember the first time I went through this event, and all I could think was, this is it? My very first character in World of Warcraft was a Night Elf. Teldrassil was a place that held a lot of memories for me, and how they handled its destruction felt kind of insulting, to be honest. Like, if Final Fantasy XIV decided to completely destroy one of its major cities, I can almost guarantee they would handle it with more gravitas. Like, if they decided to burn Gridania to the ground, it wouldn't just be an event that gets glossed over. The ramifications and implications of it would be long felt in the narrative. The last thing I wanted to touch on was something mentioned in a Chinese interview regarding this being the end to Warcraft III. I know in the developer preview they mentioned threads in Warcraft III, but apparently in this Chinese interview they made a clarifying statement that this was to be the ending of Warcraft III. My response to that is, haven't you done enough damage to Warcraft III already? The abomination that was Warcraft III Reforged tainted the Warcraft III name. I mean, the game was so bad that it actually broke the original game. I never thought a game could be so bad that the original would suffer because of it. But now, they apparently want to append this awful Shadowlands story onto the Warcraft III legacy as well. Hasn't Warcraft III suffered enough? Please, leave Warcraft III alone. Just leave it alone. Besides that, Warcraft III got tied up pretty nicely in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. I get that there were unanswered questions that they could explore, but I don't see those having much to do about Warcraft III. Those were mysteries that helped make the game, more fantastical. They didn't necessarily need to be gutted open for us to see it in glorious detail. But if they had to delve into this, I really wish it was better handled. Shadowlands has a lot of big concepts and narrative implications. It feels like they could have spent many years going through all of this, but they are wrapping it all up in 2 patches. Right, this is what I mean when I say World of Warcraft rushes through its content. I get that having a saga that's been building to a conclusion is a very cool thing. It's exciting for everyone that has been engaging with it, but this just feels cheap. You can't just come out and say, this has been building up since Warcraft 3, without putting in some serious work into that. Show it in the game. You can't just make statements like that and expect us to just buy it. So, that is all I have to say about that. I do hope that World of Warcraft can sort out their narrative and come back swinging in 10.0. I also wanted to say that 9.2 does look good. Putting aside the cringeworthy narrative stuff that was said, the other stuff is looking pretty solid. Anyways, what do you all think about the narrative in World of Warcraft? Do you think they earned what they said about their narrative this expansion? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please consider subscribing and liking. Thank you all so much, and have a great day.